Well, it's very interesting for me to be here enjoying the day by Morris Daly Auditorium, my alma mater. I graduated from San Jose State 49 years ago. So it's good to be back, and it's good to be talking about veganism. Hi, we're here at San Jose State University in San Jose, California. We have a table set up that says, "Arguing against veganism is arguing for animal cruelty." And we wish to thank Earthling Ed and Joy Clarkstrong for the influence and the suggestions. We're such big fans. Thank you very much. We're here to see if we can have a conversation one-on-one with individuals about veganism, open to hearing their ideas, and hopefully they'll be open to hearing ours. So hopefully we'll get some good conversations. What's your name?
My name is Sid.
Sid?
Yes.
I'm Debbie. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So we're here today to have a discussion about veganism.
Mm-hmm.
Our banner says arguing against veganism is arguing for animal abuse.
Okay.
And so we're asking people what they feel about that statement.
I guess I feel like that's a little bit disconnected, so I'd like to ask why you feel that way.
I feel that way because the definition of veganism is that we live a lifestyle that's against animal abuse.
Okay. Is that? I did not know that. My bad.
Yeah. So that says veganism is a way of living which seeks to exclude, as far as possible and practicable, all forms of exploitation and cruelty to animals for food, clothing, or any other purpose.
Okay.
So it's a lifestyle, it's a way of living.
Mm-hmm.
And so we are asking that, you know, if you're against veganism or you're not pro-veganism, then you are for supporting animal cruelty. So if you're not supporting veganism, by definition, you're supporting animal cruelty.
Okay. So how would you define animal cruelty?
How would you define it?
Generally, I would say exploitation is a big one, but without any benefit to the animal.
Okay.
So that would, I wouldn't say disciplining a dog, not like smacking the dog obviously, but disciplining them by putting them in their crate for 10 minutes after they destroy something would be animal cruelty. It would be teaching them how things work.
Right.
So, not saying that that's how farming works. Obviously, you don't do that with animals. But I think reputable local farmers can have the good practices. It's definitely big industries are a huge problem.
So what practices of these small farms do you feel would be acceptable as not being animal cruelty?
So definitely I don't see as taking eggs from hens that have no rooster around as cruel, just because they don't, I mean, sometimes they'll eat their own eggs, which is fair, that's a source of food, but they're still being fed. And biologically, it's really interesting how chickens were actually just originally their breeding mechanism was based off of the growth of bamboo and would go through seasons and stuff. So they genetically changed themselves to make it that they have big booms whenever they are fed extra. So how we, what's the right word, domesticated them is by just giving them extra food so they'd constantly be producing eggs.
So are you familiar with the egg industry? And
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Again, small farmers versus egg industry, completely different thing in my opinion.
Okay. Do you know where they get those hens that they get the eggs from?
The small farmers? The small farmer I know personally, she gets them from her aunt, but I don't know where her aunt gets them.
Right. most chickens, even the smaller farms, and especially the you know, the big industrial farms, and even from backyard hens, those come from hatcheries.
Yes.
Breeders. And when they breed the chickens to lay eggs, all the chickens that are born that are boys are useless to them because they don't lay eggs. So immediately, everywhere, any place that breeds chickens will kill the boys.
Culling, yes.
Yes, and so immediately 50% of them are killed on the first day of life. So would you think that is animal cruelty? I would think that would be animal cruelty.
So generally, yes, I would probably consider that animal cruelty, or maybe not even animal cruelty as unnecessary and wasteful, because it's not like the meat wouldn't still be good. It's not like that male chickens are useless by any means, even if on scientific standards. I am one who's really adamantly pro body donations. And that is, I've worked on pigs and I got to work on a hatching, or the development of an egg. It never was. We did terminate it before it hatched, but to study development, because that's what we need to learn as a student. And I guess that depends on your view of that. Yeah. I do not. I am never. I guess pro wastefulness for any life.
Right. Well, I see it as two issues. The wastefulness is something that, of course, we don't want to be wasteful. We want to take advantage of everything that we use and not waste anything. But from the animal's point of view, they're looking at it from their life. So whether we use all of their meat and bones and skin, it really makes no difference to them, because they're dead, they're gone, their life is gone. We've taken their life from them.
So at what point, I guess, so I understand that the idea is having a fully vegetarian diet, and that is somewhat feasible for some communities. What about districts that are considered for local farming that is not feasible because of resources and stuff? Specifically, there are some tribes that I know of that like to consume reptile meat, especially if they're in the desert regions, because that's what grows around. You can't live only on cactus.
Well, from my take on that is, I see the important factor there is necessity. If you need to kill an animal to survive, of course, it's going to be okay. We feel that as moral. Even in what the plane crashed in the Andes, and they
of course, yes,
that was being moral because they had to survive. So whenever there's necessity, it makes a totally different picture. So we're really talking about when it's not necessary. When it's not necessary to take that life to survive, then it's your choice to take it. It's your choice to take that life. And in my opinion, taking the life of a sentient being that does not want to die is cruelty. Okay.
So I guess my main concern is not in direct conflict. I am a huge proponent of localism. So basically, what is the resources that would naturally be available? So obviously, chickens not naturally available. They're from the China and stuff. What would naturally be available around where I'm from, Monterey, would be a lot more fish, a lot of Dudleya specifically, because we actually have an invasion of Australian ice plant. We want Dudleya, which is our native ice plant. And keeping that in balance would be more conducive. So some things like beans are not conducive for all areas, though they are really horribly important for the vegan diet. That's my take on it.
Yeah, I think I see that, of course we should always help out our local business people every chance we get. But from the animal's perspective, a cow or a chicken or a pig that is raised, half a mile from your house, still dies a terrible, horrible death. Even if that pig is right there and close to you, it's still their death, it's still their life. It doesn't matter if they're there or if they're 1,000 miles away in a factory farm. For that animal, when you slit their throat and take their life, that's everything to them.
So I can't remember the specific woman, but she was autistic, and she made great strides on changing how the cattle would see death and how they would experience death when going to the slaughter. How do you feel about that then?
I think that, for me, I think that it makes us feel good to think that we are helping the animals feel better. But we're helping them feel better in order to kill them. And I'm going to be real crass
That's fine.
bit here. But imagine if you were being raped and I said, here, put a pillow behind your head so that you won't bang your head while you're getting raped. You would say, wait, I don't want a pillow, don't make me comfortable. Stop this. It might make you feel better to make the animal have a few more inches of in their cage or a nice little life before you slit their throat. But really, to the animal, you're a product. They're a product to you, and you are taking their life without them wanting to be killed. I mean, no animal walks up voluntarily and lays their head and says, "Slit my throat." So they don't want to die, and we have to decide if taking their life unnecessarily is moral. And my personal opinion is I don't want to make them feel better while they're waiting to die and have their body chopped up.
That's fair.
I want it to stop. I mean, making them feel better is not the end goal here. I want it to stop. I don't want them to be killed.
Fair. So what is your suggestion instead? How do we keep these species alive?
Well, right now, the animals that we eat the most of, the cows and the pigs and the chickens, and in America, turkeys, they're all bred into existence. They don't live naturally. They don't have natural life cycles, right?
For sure.
They're forcibly impregnated, and they're bred into existence on purpose for us to kill them and eat them. So my thinking is that one of the reasons we're here is to have people look at the why, why veganism is the right way to go, so that there's a less and less demand. If each individual takes responsibility for themselves and says, I am not going to pay for this. I will not put my dollar down and pay for someone to slit a pig's throat anymore, or a chicken's throat. Then those people, because they want to make money, they won't breed them if they're not going to be able to sell them.
Absolutely.
So eventually, it may take a while, but hopefully it will happen that more and more people will become vegan. The demand for these animals will go down less and less, and it really won't be a problem. It will just naturally die down if we can get more and more people to understand that it's their responsibility. These companies don't exist out of philanthropy. They can exist for money. Yeah. And when we pay for it, we are saying, yes, go kill another cow because I want to eat meat. Go kill another chicken because I want to eat their eggs, which egg chickens eventually do end up in slaughter too. So the milk industry, the cows end up in slaughter, so it's just the same as the meat industry. For the egg industry, the chickens still end up slaughtered. It's still the same. It's still chicken meat industry.
Yes, the chicken rarely lives straight to old age.
Right.
But my question is, what do we do with these animals that are so taken from their ability to live on their own?
My personal view is that as people become vegan, the amount of these animals that are bred into existence decreases and goes down and down, and there will be enough to where there's going to be enough sanctuaries to take care of whatever animals that are left, and that breeding them into existence to be killed is not a moral thing to do. It's not like we're saying It's not like they're wildlife out in the wild and we're trying to protect them. No, these animals are not here by nature. These animals are here because we purposely did it. Humans did it. So my thinking is that there will be enough that they can have sanctuaries and live a happy life whenever we get down to that blissful place when people don't pay for it.
Interesting. That was cool.
So have you ever thought about going vegan?
I was vegetarian for a very long time. Unfortunately, the household I live in right now is not conducive to vegetarianism. So I wish to go back, but or at least pescatarianism. But I don't see veganism as an opportunity anytime soon. Unfortunately.
Do you buy your own food or?
No. I unfortunately am a full-time student, and I am not in. I'm not making my own money.
So let me ask you this. Let's say that the person who is providing you the food, you don't make your own food, whoever is doing
I make the food though.
You make the food?
Yes, but I don't get purchasing power over the food that's made.
So if that food that was available to you was, someone said, hey, I read about dog meat, there's a dog farm down the road and we got some dog meat and let's cook it up and eat it. Would you feel obligated to eat that? Or would you say, no, I'm going to find my own way. I don't want to eat that.
Unfortunately, I've been in situations in my life where I would still do that.
You would still eat the dog?
Yeah. I've been poor enough to know that you take what you get.
But when you have the choice, whenever you have the choice to do it, would you?
I don't have a moral opposition of eating one animal over another. And in fact, the only animal that I would probably never eat at a moral opposition would be octopus. Though they are tasty. But I understand the idea of not wanting to take life, but I do not see one animal as being greater than another. Would I try human meat? Yes. That's it doesn't matter to me. Meat, once it's dead, it's dead. There's no point in wasting it.
But you wouldn't pay someone to kill someone to eat them.
No. There is, I guess, a truce amongst our own kind. So yeah, I would not do that, beyond the fact that it's illegal.
So if you wouldn't pay someone to kill a human to eat their flesh, what is the moral difference in paying someone to kill a cow or a pig or a chicken to eat their flesh? What's the moral difference?
For me, the moral difference would be purpose and cognitive dissonance, straight up. I'm not gonna lie, I have cognitive dissonance, and I also don't value a cow on the same level as I value a human. And I think that's partially ingrained in me as being a predator, because as you probably know, the psychology of how we view cuteness is actually more based off of how predatory the animal's facial features is. It's really interesting, and how much we think of it alike. We are less likely to think of herbivores as part of ourselves or part of the same social status.
Well, I'm thinking of the difference in why you would not pay to eat human meat, but you do pay to eat cow. What is the difference between the cow and a human that makes that difference for you?
Potential. The difference is potential. The potential of a cow is lower than the potential of a human. The potential. I am a huge advocate of actually eating bugs. I think that is something we should absolutely get in. And I've had cricket cookies before. I've had invertebrates. They're actually not bad. But the potential of any bug is, we can all agree, much lower. It is one of the reasons why cordyceps are able to infect insects, is because their nervous systems are not as developed. They do not have the same capabilities. That being said, I recognize that a cow has much greater than that. But do I think that a cow will Do I think that cows should be able to learn and grow? Absolutely. I would love to see evolution in cows and their thinking. I'd love to see cognizance in any species. It's really amazing even how you can see mental development with a dog that has nothing, that was stray, that and once you give it something, or give it all its needs, the idea of basic needs and foundation and stuff is what allows something to evolve and to think in a higher plane. I think everything should be given that opportunity. Absolutely.
So you mentioned the potential of a cow. So if you think that potential is the deciding factor in what's okay to eat and what's not okay to eat, what about a human being that has mental problems, has mental illness, or maybe is, not as doesn't have as much potential as the average human? Would you judge that as, oh well, that person doesn't have potential, so I can eat it?
No, that comes down to our evolutionary idea of keeping us the sameness of the species, where we have the things that are more like us will always have more of an affinity towards. People who are disabled are us. They are still us. So of course we have more. That's an evolutionary thing across the board. Every species exhibits this, except I don't know for sure if plants do, but I'm not a botanist by any field. Molecular biology is where I'm actually at, but development is just a side fun. But when it comes to that, I recognize that it may be considered hypocritical, but it is intuitive to our programming, if that makes sense.
Okay, but there is a difference between, I see a difference between the valuing a cow as the same as a human versus veganism, which is not saying we want cows and humans to be treated the same. That's not what veganism is.
Of course.
We're just saying that the cow, it has more value than 5 minutes of taste bud pleasure.
Oh, fair.
So that's really what we're saying, is that the cow's life is ended for 5 minutes of taste bud pleasure. We're thinking that is not.
Hi, Pup.
That is not, in my opinion, I don't consider that moral. So I consider that's one of the reasons why we're here with this sign about the animal cruelty, that I see that killing a cow for 5 minutes of taste bud pleasure, which is what you do when you walk into McDonald's and buy a hamburger. You're saying, kill this cow for me so I can eat this sandwich for 5 minutes and have taste bud pleasure. And that to me is the crux of veganism. Not that we're saying that cows are equal and we should treat them exactly the way we do humans. That's not the case. Have you ever thought about it that way?
I do understand this, and I would agree that it's completely undervalued, and when pleasure comes into it, that's more of a problem. And us as higher beings, and I'm saying higher as in we have more resources, we have the ability to choose this and think about things morally. Not like that we're divine or anything. That's a whole nother conversation. But as more aware beings, that we do not have necessarily the right to take a life just for pleasure. But we do have the right, as is every species, to choose to survive how and what is best for that survival. I would not say that I condone McDonald's or even just buying meat for no reason. I will say that that as a fallible human being, because of course I've obviously really craved meat at one point and bought it, not recently, but it's happened in my life. As as a fallible human being, I recognize that the availability and the necessity for certain like proteins is important. Again, this is why I advocate for invertebrates more over red meat, especially because we have seasonings, which I think are better than anything. But I put seasonings in everything. It really changes your game. When you realize you don't have to use meat as a seasoning, it's pretty like world opening. But I'm also not a I think dietitian is there's one of them, yeah, nutritionist is not the protected version, dietitian is protected. I am not a dietitian. This is not my field. But I do know that personally, I have a condition where I do need to have a certain amount of iron, because otherwise it might, actually I can show you right now, I'll start bleeding through my skin. It's pretty gross, but I have some scabs right here. And that's unfortunate. I like to get my iron from spinach. Spinach is my holy grail. But that's not how everyone likes it. And I also admit that there are some vegetables that I avoid that I probably shouldn't for my own health. And whether or not my preference is better than the idea of a life, I get that. I totally get that. I will not say that I expect everyone to be on my, I expect the same out of everyone else, because that feels like a bit much. I can't.
I'm thinking that, definitely if a person needs something to survive, that makes it okay to get that. But vast majority of
meat eaters don't. I agree.
They don't. They're very sick. Meat has been proven to be causing cancer. It causes heart problems. It can even contribute to diabetes, and so the health part of it is, as a species, we all are humans. We can survive, not only survive, but be healthy eating plants. So, there is nobody here really who would die if they went vegan.
No, absolutely not. Not in this society. And that is something in an American world, or like in this culture where we have such access and actually such food waste. I agree with you.
And that the American Academy, the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, which has over 100,000 dietitians in it, and the British equivalent, all of the big dietitians and nutritionists say that a vegan diet can be healthy for all stages of life, including pregnancy, infancy, old age, for athletes. So there's really very little evidence on the side that being vegan is not healthy. So not only is it healthy, it's the healthiest. A vegan diet is the only diet that's been clinically proven to reverse heart disease, not just stop it, but it can reverse it, and it's been clinically proven. So the health aspect to me is pretty kind of clear. Most everybody knows that eating vegetables, eat your vegetables is a healthy thing. Most everybody we grew up thinking that way, right? The WHO, the World Health Organization, has said that meat is a carcinogen.
Yes.
So all the evidence is kind of pointing that eating meat is unhealthy while eating plants is healthy. So the health aspect kind of really doesn't hold water when it comes to an excuse to eat meat or kill animals. I'm
not saying that it necessarily does for every person. I'm saying that it can for certain individuals. And I get that that's talking about exceptionalism, and that's a poor debate tactic. But just, I wouldn't, I'm just saying in general, again, I still prefer invertebrates, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily the if you wanted to put it on a moral stance, it's probably not the most moral. I'm not gonna be, this is probably not painting myself in a very good light. I'm not gonna say that's my first moral stance that I'm going to take on personally. I'm more concerned of sourcing my food and how I source my food than what the contents of it is. And that's a personal thing for environmentalism more than
environmentalism.
The meat industry is
Horrible,
garbage.
yes.
Absolutely.
So going vegan is according to Oxford University, going vegan is the biggest thing that any individual can do to help stop climate change and help stop the destruction of the earth.
Absolutely, but so is the agricultural company, and that's what I'm saying. I know I should probably stop eating spinach as much as I do because of how well, I mean, I guess I live really close to Salinas, so it's not as bad, but how much certain vegetables can be just as detrimental. Maybe not as detrimental as cows. Cows are really detrimental to the environment, but there are a lot of specific, like almonds, very detrimental to the environment.
Not as much as cows, though.
Nothing beats cows. Cows, I can definitely say that I would never recommend eating cows unless that's your first, or obviously if you're starving or in the situation of lack of resources. And I will never demonize anyone who has lack of resources. Resources for an individual is super huge, and a lot of people are put in a lot of bad situations
and I
because
think that kind of
capitalism.
adds to a point of there are some people who have no choice, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of puts those of us who do have a choice, we have an even greater responsibility to do it because those who can't.
Yes.
So we kind of have even more of a responsibility to do what we can do because, we're here in a place where there's no real reason why anybody here cannot walk into a store and buy vegan food.
No, absolutely. I'm a huge fan of
and
most
delicious vegan food. The last few years have been wonderful for the vegan industry. The food is just skyrocketed as far as taste and texture.
Learned turmeric is absolutely turmeric plus onion, really together gives like a chickeny taste, but it's not chicken. It's really good though.
Yeah.
Highly recommend it. But no, I completely agree. And the responsibility of those who are have choices is huge, as well as responsibility of those who are educated and know the issues. More than anything, I think the biggest problem that veganism is actually facing, not that, again, I'm not inherently against veganism by any means. You do you. I will probably keep it at vegetarianism because I'm partially because of my own medical conditions and partially because of what I feel like I could produce sustainably. And I have no moral, and this is my personal thing, I am not at the level where I have a moral thing against eating eggs. That's me. That's not everybody. And I totally get that. And I understand that some eggs or some chickens are taken in very garbage ways. But once you have an established flock, it's pretty easy to avoid things like that. With a rooster in the flock. But that being said, sorry.
So is that how you eat? You only eat those eggs from those farms?
Actually, I do. Yeah, I only eat her eggs. I love her eggs. I think they taste better because they're something about knowing that she. Well, I've also met the chickens. I actually babysat her children for a while. So I know the situation a lot better. I wouldn't I will admit that I probably think that her getting sheep was a bit much. She wanted them for weeds. I think sheep need more care than she was really able to give them when you have 2 children at the same time, because, you know, that's a lot of lifetime you're spending.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I do really only eat her eggs. Rad Girl Farms.
How about things like when somebody offers you a birthday cake or cookies, you know that there are eggs in there that are not from those kind of farms.
Absolutely. I don't generally, this is a politeness issue personally. I don't take it, if someone gives me something, I try to be very gracious about it. But again, I also grew up with very, very little. Recently, my friend who loves me very dearly gave me, because they know I'm a huge fan of bats, and then I'm a huge anatomy nerd, they gave me a skeleton of a bat, and it was very sweet. Unfortunately, I know that bat was most likely poached in China, and I had to softly tell them a few months later that if you are to source bones for me, please go to Skulls Unlimited specifically. It's a ethically sourced, mostly roadkill or donations kind of thing. And I prefer ethically sourced things by far, but I will take things that are given to me in general just because of how I'm raised.
And I'm thinking that I think that the only moral meat to consume is roadkill.
Fair.
From a moral standpoint, because any other meat that you consume or any other animal product, dairy or eggs, has to come from some kind of cruelty. And those chickens, that lay the eggs, will die before it's their time. Chickens have been raised to lay like 300 eggs a year versus about 20, which would be natural, so that they're bred to.
Unfortunately, yeah, that's how
to
genetically
overuse their body. Yeah.
So genetically, they were already like that. We've exploited that genetic thing, so I get that. And sometimes her eggs don't lay, and I don't have eggs, or her hens don't lay. Her eggs obviously don't lay, but yeah. And I don't have eggs, and that's fine. I go without eggs for a little while. But I understand the idea of exploitation of animal. Would I say that they see it that way because they are getting excess food? I doubt it. They're not. They're still chickens. I wish I could say that. I know some chickens are more developed. Like there is one dog that I know of that is developed, has enough consciousness to be able to organize his or her, I don't remember, but toys in a pattern to almost make art, and that is fantastic. That needs to be nurtured. That's anything that goes towards something of higher thinking is great. I'm not saying every dog is like that, and I'm not saying every chicken is the chicken that is a cuddly, because some chickens are house pets and they are cuddly and they are great. And my friend who is the farmer, she actually is really interested in keeping her chickens as cuddly as possible, and she sees them as pets. She doesn't eat them after they pass, and she does keep them until they pass, even if they are just waste on the farm, eating resources. And that's great, and I'm really happy about that. Were probably originally some of her hatchlings, is that the term?
That'd be okay.
Yeah. Probably coming from a bad industry. Yes, they are separated now, though. It is separate from that industry, I believe, because once you're able to establish, and I'm not saying that we should promote the industry by any means, but you can separate from the industry. If somebody wants to buy her eggs to raise as hens, then they would be separated by another generation on top of that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Still, we're using that chicken for what she can produce. If we were to say, let's do that for humans, let's say alien species came down and grabbed up some women and took them out and said, we're going to start breeding humans, we would find that immoral.
Most people would, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I honestly can't imagine a situation where I would see that as immoral. If an alien species is beyond us to the point where they can figure out intergalactic travel, then they can do whatever they want with me. I trust them.
Well, I think we've come to a good conclusion. Would you be interested in looking at some more information?
Absolutely.
That's funny. Let us know if you get abducted.
Yeah, I will.
This is a lot of information and local information about what's available here. So if you're interested in looking at some videos, this talks about the ethics, the environment, and the health.
Okay.
It's a lot of information there.
And then Santa Clara County vegan restaurant. Oh, that's right. I did go to the. There was a cute little vegetarian. I haven't tried the vegetarian house.
Yes.
I
good.
have had a lot of the good stuff there. I really do like that. And then, I didn't know there were so many around here. I wish there was more where I lived. And I do love tofu and legumes. And I do eat vegan meat as much as possible, personally. I wouldn't actually say that, again, I'm not telling everybody else they have to, but I do know the implications, especially from cows. So why honey, out of curiosity? I've seen this a lot, where they don't like taking honey.
Right. Well, it takes 12 bees their entire life to make 1 teaspoon of honey.
I did not know that.
And the way that they do the honey is they will pull the queen bee's wings off so she can't fly away, and they manually, artificially inseminate her, so they're manipulating her. It's not natural at all.
Oh, really? I thought they put her in, from what I've seen, they put her in a clip, and then she has to stay in that clip. But I mean, like, not that that's great, because she has not a lot of room, but she's able.
Yeah, so they're being used for their honey, and their honey is really meant for them, for their children, for their hive. It's not. They don't make honey for humans.
That's an interesting take, because I've always heard, or always assumed that the honey debate was more based off of the colonial bees or colonizing bees versus independent bees, because most bees, as you probably know, are actually solitary. Almost all bee species are, and the honeybees are really only a European bee. He really wants those squirrels. Sorry, or shoot. But honeybees are really just specifically the European honeybee, and they are overtaking farms, and it's actually decimating bee population, solitary bee populations. So that's what I always assumed what the argument was. I did not know that it takes that much effort.
It takes 12 bees their entire life to make 1 spoonful, 1 teaspoon of honey. So yeah, so that vegans are all against abuse and
exploitation
of all animals for all reasons, for entertainment, for clothing, for medicine.
For medicine. So you wouldn't say like snake venom. You wouldn't take snake venom by milking snakes. I was just curious.
No, not if if it's not necessary. Which
for medicine though. Well,
there are other ways for us to get medicine, especially these days with computers and stuff. We don't need to test on animals.
Oh no. Milking snakes is when you take you just put you obviously house a snake for a long period of time, and then I'm a huge reptile nerd actually. I really love reptiles, but you just put their fangs in like a little saran wrapped cup, and you kind of massage the back of their head, and it deposits the antivenom or the venom, and then you can use that to make antivenom. I'm actually most interested in using that for protein denaturing purposes, but that's totally like super dorky stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, I really don't I don't know that much about it, but I would step back and look at it how, from my standpoint, am I exploiting and abusing the animal? And I look at it as if the animal is capable of feeling pain and suffering, I don't want to cause that. And so that's, some people draw a line at bugs and things like that, or plants. Like some people say, well, plants feel pain too. And like, you got to draw a line somewhere.
Yeah, they do technically. Their nociceptors are not anywhere.
They don't feel pain. They don't have nerve receptors. They don't have a central nervous system. They don't have a brain that can interpret those signals. So they don't feel pain. There's no evolutionary reason for them to feel pain because they can't move. So that's where I'm like, okay, I'm cool with taking that life because to me, if that living creature or living thing, if they feel pain and they can suffer, that's where I'm going to draw my moral line.
Okay, interesting. I think I have a different moral line, but that's okay.
Okay, well, it was a wonderful conversation.
Nice to
I
meet you.
appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
But sorry, your name again?
Debbie.
Nice to meet you, Debbie.
And your name again?
Sid.
Sid. Okay,
Right, yeah.
Sid, it was great.
So I'll give you back this.
I think we had a good discussion there. Yeah. You want to have a conversation?
I think your premise is too great, unless you change like the first premise, which is being against veganism is animal cruelty. So if you change animal cruelty to a different word, then maybe you have an argument. It's pretty hard to argue with what is stated so far.
How is it hard to argue this? I'm not sure I understand why it's hard to argue this.
No, I'm saying like it's the way it's framed. It's nearly impossible to argue against it.
Right.
The way it's framed. So all I'm saying is the last word, if it changed.
We just had a lengthy conversation with 3 gentlemen, and they stopped to talk about the wording of our banner, and we got them involved in a conversation. They didn't want to sit and talk and be filmed, but it was an interesting talk, things that they hadn't thought about before. They weren't able to argue against veganism at all, as we expected. I think we left them thinking about it. I think they're going to really look into the documentaries that we recommended. And they agreed that there's no way that people are going to argue for animal cruelty. That was a good conversation, about 15 minutes. So I think we're making a little bit of headway here. We've got people stopping and talking, people stopping to get filmed, people walking by and taking pictures of us. So I know that tonight there will be a lot of conversations about veganism that wouldn't have existed before. So that is why we are here, to get people talking about it.